100 cases of people who wandered into the wilderness but never came back. Accounts of children, people
was a coyote,
vanishing,
dog, or
seemingly
else.
swallowed up by the many endless forests across America, or even later found in ways that defy logic.
An animal.
Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man.
She described the way that
like a man.
the creature moved would not be unnatural.
You've had problems in the neighborhood
It looked
before?
like it was
Yeah, my dog was
uncomfortable
killed here
in
just
its own
recently.
feet.
I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, it was standing out there. I'm out here
It
looking through
looked
the
like
window
a
now.
vehicle.
She
She
I don't want to go
believed
outside.
that what she was looking at
Jesus
was
Christ,
pure
you better.
evil.
Sure.
See ya.
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9" up.
Do you
Many
see
of the
him now,
cases of
sir?
about
Yes, I'm looking
100
right
people,
at him.
at least, who claim that they've been abducted
hang
by
on.
aliens.
He's
One
right.
of Dr.
Is
Matt's
he in your
patients,
yard,
Linda,
sir?
Yeah,
who
he's
says
gone.
she
He's
has
big.
been
Faded out.
abducted since childhood.
Reality is, I was just
what I remember
being brought up this tunnel of light, right?
being
Out
around my
of
bed.
this tunnel, I
And I
just
ran between them
noticed
and ran
parts
out
of my
of
life
the
that
room
wouldn't
to my
even
mother's
occur to me to
to
remember.
hide
Then I
from
knew that I
And
wasn't
I
being
never
my
told
mom,
anybody
that I
about
was
that, and I just buried it in the back
And so
of my
then I
mind.
came to the end of this tunnel and noticed there was a man that first touched me at first as
A
a place
mist or a fog
and I
kind
also
of
saw
moving.
relatives that had
The
died
action, the
that
motion
year.
caught my
Then
eye. It
the
actually
wizard,
started
without
taking
moving his
shape,
mouth,
taking
spoke to me and
form.
said,
The
"Struggle,
idea
you're
of the
too
Grim
young to
Reaper
die."
went through my head, cloaked figure. And as I was watching, it kept becoming more and more and more distinct to me that this was actually something with some type of presence. Like it knew I was there. And as I was watching it, it turned and looked directly at me. I felt like whatever this was angry at me. I wasn't welcome. It wanted me out. I had been face to face with a ghost or a demon, a spirit. I'm not really sure what. But this feeling of terror actually was going through me. And I really felt more that it was
Hey everybody,
demonic,
welcome to
something
Real
very
Supernatural
evil.
Encounters. So for today, I'm going to do a few of the stories off my subreddit, Supernatural Encounters. So without further ado, I think we should get started. For the first story, this is from Reddit user accomplished-ad-3891. And the title is My Son, My Grandma, in a Place Called Kryptodon. My grandma lived to be 99 years old, passed about 8 years ago. I'm now in my 40s, and to this day, I've never quite felt a connection to another human being as I shared with her. My wife was around 2 months pregnant with our first child when I had gotten word that my grandma wasn't doing so well. I was crushed that she likely wouldn't be able to meet my firstborn child. At this point, I lived across the country from where my grandma was. I just started a new career, and my mom told me that my grandma had developed bad dementia and suggested it was okay to stay home and handle my priorities versus seeing her in that state. I ultimately decided to stay home to help my pregnant wife. My grandma hung on for a couple of months, then passed. And a few months later, our son was born. Now, this is an important detail for later. My son has these insanely piercing bright blue eyes and platinum blonde hair. Fast forward 6 months or so, and I'm in my son's room one night, trying to get him to sleep. He was in his crib and suddenly turned his head a bit to look up towards the corner of the ceiling, almost as if he was startled. Then he started laughing hysterically, like so hard he could barely catch his breath. I'm following his line of sight and looking up there. There are no nearby pictures or decorations up there, just a blank wall in the corner of the room. The next day, it happened again. So I went to go get my wife from the other room so she could see how he was laughing. She told me that he was doing the same thing during the day the whole week while I was at work. It became a regular occurrence, multiple times a day, and borderline creepy because he was clearly seeing something up there. A couple months later, my mom came to visit. One night, she's helping me get my son ready for bed, and we get into a conversation about my grandma's last days, particularly how her dementia was getting worse and worse as it went on until this one specific day. Here's the first kicker. She tells me that this one day she goes to visit my grandma and she's in bed. Her feet are dancing back and forth with a huge smile on her face. And it's the first somewhat normal conversation they have had in about a month. Mom goes to say, "Wow, you're so happy today." Grandma replies, "Yeah, my friend came to visit me again." Mom says, "Who's that?" Grandma replies, "The boy with the penguins." Mom says, "Oh, is he a boy visiting someone in the nursing home?" Grandma replies, "No, he lives in there." Then she points to the corner of the room near the ceiling. To humor her, my mom asks, "What does he look like?" Grandma says, "The boy with the blue eyes and white blonde hair. He's going to visit me every day now." Now, at this point, my jaw is practically on the floor. She proceeds to tell me how, from that day forward, it's all my grandma will talk about. Every single day until the day she dies, a blue-eyed, blonde boy with penguin friends who lives on a tropical island inside the wall that pops in to visit her. I then tell my mom about my son and the giggling in the ceiling. We're both shocked at the coincidence, and I ask, "What's with the penguins?" My mom has no clue, neither do I. I want to believe at this point my grandma and son had some sort of unworldly connection. But the rational side of me is like, she had dementia, babies do weird stuff sometimes, and penguins and tropical islands make no sense. But here's the second kick, and I cannot deny it after this. Fast forward, my son is roughly 4.5. Out of the blue, he starts talking about the place where he used to live before he was born, called Kryptodon, every single day. This is my best interpretation of the spelling, and of course it's spelled Kryptodon. He says Kryptodon is like a planet, but not near Earth, where people can fly and animals can talk, among many other details. I listened to his stories about it, and I'm happy as he has a big imagination. At this point, I had forgotten about the penguins. One day, I'm going through an old photo album, and I see a pic of my grandma. I call my son over to come see the picture, and this is the first time I've ever shown him a picture of my grandma. He says, "I know her. She's my friend from Kryptodon." My hair stands up, and I ask him to tell me more about her, and he says, "She came over and ate pineapples with me and the penguins on my island when I lived there." I then burst into tears as the details of my mom's story came rushing back to me. I feel like the probability of all this being only coincidence is nearly impossible. I don't know what it all means, but I'm grateful to be able to finally share this. Thanks for reading. And there's the edited part. Wow, thanks for all the positive responses. I've always been hesitant to put this out there because it's very personal to me. My son is now 7 years old and rarely talks about Kryptodon. And if I ask, he says he remembers and will acknowledge it, just with nowhere near the level of detail he once did before. I left out so many details to try and keep the post short. He drew literally hundreds of pictures of it, and I've saved most of them in a binder. He talked about it for hours at a time on a daily basis until he was around 6. He asked me once if I remember being there. I said no, and he said, "We've traveled together for a long, long time." I asked how long, and he said, "Higher than people can count." He also claimed that he once was my dad a long time ago. My wife bought him a stuffed animal when he was just a newborn, a gray elephant. He named it Ellie when he was older, and told us that there was an elephant on his island that taught people to travel to other places. And that since his mom gave him the stuffed animal, that's how he knew he was in the right place. I know this ultimately proves nothing, but I will say, when you're a parent, you know the difference when you see your child speak with true conviction. That is an amazing story. I tried to get a hold of these people, and they replied back once, and they have not been on since. I think it was like a one-time post. But if I can ever get them to come on, I will definitely bring them on a show and at least give us some details, or I can read off the details. But this is pretty amazing. It really kind of brings to light the phenomena that goes on when we're dying and when we're born. So if you guys want, leave some comments. Tell me what you think. I hope you enjoyed that story. Now, let's go ahead and move on to our second story. This is from Reddit user 4and, and the title is Some Encounters of Different Types. I am 18 years old, and I have never experienced something like this before. I was always a little scared of the paranormal because of the unknown actions that could occur, but anyways, back to the story. The first events happened last month in May 2021, when I was lying in bed unable to fall asleep. First, I was facing the wall, but then slowly turned around so I was facing the door. While turning around, I opened my eyes and saw that something transparent but white shadow was standing or kneeling in front of my bed looking at me. I decided to ignore it and pretended like I didn't see it because I didn't want to attract it even more with my fear and set in at that moment. After some time, it was gone. As I was still rolling around in the bed trying to find a comfortable position, I was facing the wall once again, but then rolled over to the other side. Across the room in front of my wardrobe, I could see a small floating white ball. Again, I tried my best to ignore it, and it disappeared within seconds. I am still unsure of what I witnessed that night. Nothing too terrifying happened that night, and after these two incidences, I wasn't aware of anything else that had happened. A few days ago, I was sitting outside in my garden, and my parents were on the walk with the dog, which meant that I would be alone for about an hour to 2 hours before they came back. I will admit that I was listening to a scary story, so my fear, paranoia might have been playing tricks on me, but I heard the footsteps walking towards me and then away from me. I didn't spend that much time outside after that and went inside into my room. This morning, I sat outside again and once again listening to scary stories. My parents said goodbye as they went out to their usual morning walk with the dog. I heard these footsteps again, but this time I pressed rewind on that video in order to clarify if there were footsteps in the audio, but there were sure as hell no footsteps. I did my best to ignore them and turned up the volume. Later, I felt like I needed to look under the table because I felt like there was something there. I suppressed the urge to look until I heard a sniffing sound that was almost like a dog would make when they would be smelling something they liked or wanted to eat. I figured that my parents must have come through our gate without me noticing, and they left the dog outside because she played in the water and needed to get dry off a little. Expecting to see our beloved dog, I looked under the table and saw nothing. My parents also didn't come home at that point. I then checked the entire house because I had the feeling that I was not alone. Yet, I was completely alone. I didn't feel threatened, but definitely uncomfortable, especially with the fact that I was completely on my own. I try not to think about it too much because I don't want to attract whatever it was, or even more. I really hope it only stays at these mild encounters and doesn't turn into something horrible or terrifying. That's the end of my story, at least for now. Please feel free to let me know what you think, and if it was just my paranoid mind or something else. Wow, yeah, sometimes we have these events that we can't explain. You know, it leads up to like, what is this? What is that? And it could be a million different things. You know, it could be paranormal, it could be supernatural, it could even be multidimensional. We don't know. But once we start finding the facts, we'll be able to lay them down better. All right. Now you guys can leave a comment for that story if you like and tell me what you think it could have been. Now let's go ahead and move on to our third story. Now this third story is from Reddit user mysterious-remote599. And the title is Real Encounters with Shadow People, or possibly the Jinn. Now this is two stories. One account is from the Reddit user's son, and one is from their own personal experience. Here's my son's experience. My 6-year-old son, who is now 14, told me that when he was outside playing by the pond in our backyard, that it got really quiet. He couldn't hear anything at all, but then he started to hear music coming from behind the pond. This is not a rural area, Jacksonville, Florida, but the pond backed up to a wooded area, possibly a preserve. He said the music played and he followed it to the back side of the pond. There he met what he described as a shadow kids at the time. He said that they didn't talk, but they played with him. He said they played tag first, then built rock towers. Then he said they started to play hide and seek, and he was the seeker. He saw one and started to chase it. He said it tripped over a rock and fell, and so he stopped because all of the other shadows came out and surrounded it. Then two larger shadow people, he described them as being as big as a house, came out and sort of scolded him. He said it was a menacing feeling, like they were angry and it was his fault. He got scared and ran back into the house. He told me that the whole ordeal, which sounded like it would have taken at least an hour with all the playing and different games they played, but he had only been outside maybe 5 minutes. While I was putting my swimsuit on because I was going to go tan and let him play outside. He was tired and even took a nap after. I didn't discredit his story. He isn't and never has been a liar. He has always had the whole Gryffindor Harry Potter persona about him. So I knew he wasn't making it up. It bothered me a lot, but I didn't bring it up other than to ask if he had seen them ever again. He didn't, and he even said that he wished they would come back because they were so much fun to play with. His accounts of the shadow people were so different from my terrifying accounts that it confused me. A few years later, when he was 10, I asked him if he remembered the shadow kids and the music. Older now, he said yes. All of it was real too. I remember playing with them for hours and you weren't even worried about me. I thought I was going to be in trouble when I got back, but I was having so much fun. We talked about it a little and what they looked like. He told me they were like shadows, but also like smoke. They weren't black. They were transparent, but also able to be seen. He says it's hard to describe, but the closest thing he could think of is mist or smoke. I read all these crazy encounters and couldn't believe the similarities. The silence, the music playing, the transparent figures, the loss of time. Yesterday was my first time reading into this and here on Reddit, and I've been hooked because of my son's personal experience. I just asked him if he remembered, and he at first tried to do the whole mom, it was probably just temporary schizophrenia because it embarrasses him now, I guess. When I told him I was asking because a bunch of people had the same thing happen to them, he eased up and started talking about it. He said that the music wasn't scary, it was nice. He again described that the misty smoke transparency of the shadow kids and how much the big one scared him. This time he added it was dark when he ran home and he went to bed. Not sure if that was what he experienced at the time or his memory from being scared made him think it was dark. He did go straight to sleep. It was a sunny afternoon in the Florida summer. My son was 6 years old when this happened. We moved to a new home a few weeks after this experience, and it never happened again. He said they were similar to us, just people, but misty. He said that the silence made him think he went deaf at first. He couldn't hear anything until the music started playing. The music played the whole time until he ran back into the house. Now, for my terrifying encounter. The year before my son's encounter, I was asleep in my bedroom with my Boston Terrier, and in the middle of the night, I woke up because I heard a loud crack. It sounded like if a large piece of plywood were to fall onto a tile floor. I sat up and so did my dog. My bedroom was shaped in a way where the doorway is sunken in, kind of the shape of the state of Alabama. If Alabama had all the straight edges, with the southwest corner of the state being where my bedroom door was. I looked towards my door because I was going to get up and see what fell. My husband was on the couch in our living room playing video games on the other side of the wall. It was a small 900 square foot apartment, and I could hear the TV. I'll be damned if when I looked towards the door, I saw someone standing there. I tried to adjust my eyes because my room was pretty dark. My bedroom window was large, but it was facing a wooded area, so there weren't any moonlight or lights of any kind. My eyes focused and I could tell it was a man. I said my husband's name thinking he was trying to scare me. I didn't get an answer. This man stepped out of the doorway, and that's when I realized it wasn't anyone I knew. It was a person, and this person was at least 7 foot tall. Looked like a guy wearing normal clothes and a hat, like maybe a baseball cap. It was so dark, but it was definitely a person. My dog saw it too, and he started growling. That's when the good old glitch, overwhelming sense of dread came over me. It was like it poured over me like water. I went from being curious to full adrenaline pumping. The dog was the confirmation I needed to snap me into the survival mode. My thoughts were going 1,000 miles an hour. I darted my gaze to our bathroom door, which was also shut, and I knew I couldn't book it in time before the guy closed in. I had nothing near me I could use as a weapon, and this guy was so big. He was taking up all the space in the front of my closed bathroom door. The dog stood up next to me and started barking like crazy. I did the only thing I could manage, and that was start shouting. I screamed, "Who are you? What are you doing in my room?" No answer. He just stepped in closer. His arms were bowed, and he was sort of hunched forward like he was coming straight at me. As he inched forward, that thought crossed my mind, and that's when my husband hadn't responded to me yelling, and the dog barking yet, and the fact that this person had somehow gotten past him undetected. It was physically impossible. I immediately thought that this tall freak was someone that broke in to kill us, and they had gotten to my husband first, and I was next. I wasn't going down without a fight, and I remember thinking he's going to have to overkill me because I'm not going down like this. I start screaming bloody murder for anyone that could possibly hear me. This man is still silent, still getting closer. I'm sizing him up, thinking maybe if he gets close enough, I can kick him and run out the door. I realized that the way I was sitting wasn't going to be a good position for that, so I started to adjust myself, all while still screaming. Suddenly, there is light. My husband, my saving grace, comes tearing through the door and turns on the light. He's yelling, "What's going on? Who is it?" frantically looking around the room. I tell you no lies when I say this giant 7 foot tall, scary ass serial killer man evaporated right in front of my eyes. It wasn't like the lights turned on and nothing was there. This thing slowly dissipated right in front of me. I watched it fade away, just like you would see in a ghost movie, but it was more 3D, sort of like water mist. If you have ever been at a water park or a theme park where they have those misters that cool you off, it had what looked like normal clothes, like a t-shirt and jeans. I remember either the hat or the shirt looked sort of orange, but he had no face. It was maybe 2 feet away from me, from my hand stretched like it was about to grab me. I could see my husband through it, and then it was gone. I have never been so shook in my entire life. I was shaking and crying crocodile tears while my husband was so confused. He thought I just had a bad dream. Our neighbor called the police because of my screaming, and I had to tell the cops I had a nightmare because I can't just tell the cops I saw a 7 foot tall monster in my bedroom. That was embarrassing. To this day, I know I wasn't asleep. I know the difference between half dreaming and being asleep and dreaming. Dogs can't see your dreams either. I was so scared that night, I shook uncontrollably for hours. I had literally been terrified to the point I couldn't stop trembling, which has never happened to me before. And I've had a rough life with plenty of scary real life happenings. I couldn't sleep all night and didn't fall asleep by myself for years after. What do you guys think about that? For the son to be able to, he's hearing music, okay? And he goes into the woods and there's these shadow kids and they're all playing, And then one falls over and all these shadow kids surround him. And then these 2 giant, as big as a house, shadow adults or figures come over and kind of like portray like it's scolding the little one. And he thinks that the kid who was experiencing this thinks that he's been there for hours just playing and having fun. He goes home and he goes to sleep. But the crazy part is he was only outside for 5, if that many minutes. And the mom was just wondering, like, why did he go to bed? But he even confirmed that, he thought he was going to get in trouble because it was nighttime. So what do you guys think that is? Is it multidimensional? Is it unworldly? I mean, the woods carry a lot of supernatural, stories to it. And then for her to experience this 9-foot creature, like shadow thing, it kind of brings up something I want to tell you guys that's been happening to my girlfriend. After rereading this last one, it kind of makes sense now. But okay, so my girlfriend, she's religious. She don't think of, she don't listen to nothing like this. She don't get into the whole supernatural. Now she's open to it, but she doesn't get into it. You know what I'm saying? So she's never had experiences besides one time being at her friends and seeing, I guess, what would be a dog man creature that was coming over to her friend's house in Kentucky, and she was asleep, and she reported the same thing she's seen that her daughter's seen, which just blew her best friend's mind. So besides that, so about a week ago, she is going to bed, and I went to work, and she's about to go turn the lights off beside her bed. And for whatever reason, she says that she seen something in her mind, or thought she saw this 9-foot shadow figure entering the bed, like coming past the bedroom, past the bed. It had very sharp fingers, long, sharp fingers. It was all black, and it was bent to where the back of the shoulders and the head was bent, because we have a short ceiling. Our ceilings are probably about maybe 8 foot, 8.5 feet. And so this thing had to be like 10 foot if it was able to stand up. She said she just seen it in her mind passing. And then when she looked, it wasn't there. Now, this isn't the first time she's had things like she's had dreams and premonitions of the future. We've actually both had one of meeting each other. So I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And it's hard to believe, but people out there, I mean, think about it. Time is not linear. It's all happening at the same time, past, present, future. It's all going on at the same time. So it's not impossible. So the other day she was going to work in Cincinnati. It's a good hour drive. And as she was driving through the highway, she says that she's seen this figure that she could only give me the detail of looking similar to Groot from the Marvel's Avengers, but different, of course. And it was about 4 foot tall, and it was walking through traffic as cars are passing. And of course, it's going through it. She's so open-minded that she doesn't feel fear or nothing from these things. She just has an open mind to see it. That's it. She don't get excited or nothing. She just thinks like, oh, And so she sees this figure just crossing traffic. Like she said, it was like he was going on his merry way, just enjoying the day. And I just couldn't stop laughing about that. So far, that's been 2 things that has happened to her recently. And, I'm trying to figure out, is it from the supernatural stories? Are we manifesting it? Is the veil lifting? What is this? What's going on? So if you guys have any comments, questions, or maybe any ideas of what's going on for our predicament and for what my girlfriend is going through or seeing, the things she's seeing, please let me know. Hope you guys enjoyed this story as well. Looks like we came to the end for our 3-story mashup. So thank you guys for watching. It's been another episode of Real Supernatural Encounters. So if you guys have any stories, anything paranormal, supernatural, cryptid, near-death experiences, alien, unexplained, strange, please get a hold of me. You can message me on any of my media platforms. You can email me your brief stories to realsne_stories@yahoo.com. I'll leave that at the end of the video. You can also message me on Reddit. My subreddit is Supernatural Encounters. Now that's SupernatureEncounters. Now it's encounters without the T. That's the only difference. So Supernatural Encounters for subreddit. You guys can send your stories there as well. I definitely enjoy reading them. We are about to reach 1,000 members on my subreddit. So I want to thank you guys for that. We just reached 500 members on my group page. So thank you guys for that as well. I enjoy reading your stories. I enjoy having you on telling your stories. I'm looking to find more people that want to come on and tell their amazing and incredible supernatural stories. So don't be afraid or feel scared. Get a hold of me, message me, and we'll do a private interview, and we can record your episode without being live or on air. And if you want to stay private or anonymous, we can also just record your voice and keep you off video. So that option's always there. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys again. See you guys later.